Vipras, spiritual master. So, to establish this Sadvipra Samaj, to form this human society, that was the task of Sri Anand Murthy, otherwise also known as Sri Parvasanjan Sarkar. Now, there are so many impediments to the cult of spirituality, to the devotion flow of humanity, and also so many impediments at psychic level. So, to give shape to his mission, he had to deliver an ideology. So we see during his whole physical tenure, as I said earlier also, it was spent in delivering an ideology and to establish its intellectual superiority, because humanity has made much advance intellectually. So anything has to be established in society, it has to get intellectual support. So he had to establish the intellectual superiority of his ideology, and that is what he did throughout to the last moment of his life. So he delivered an ideology and established intellectual superiority, and the physical task, the task of his physical tenure was over, and he left. The question is, I gave the topic, neo-humanism, the humanist part of the ideology of Ananda Marga. So Ananda Marga, its ideology, humanist part, that is neo-humanism. What is this Ananda Marga? Acharya Parameswaranji might have dealt it in detail in his last class. And then what he dealt in spirituality, what is Ananda Marga? Then what is ideology? We have so many things in the name of ideology. But in the true sense of the ideology, there was never and is never before the advent of our Baba, so-called ideology. Anyway, what is that ideology is not subject of this presentation, but definitely this ideology has three components, because human life is trifarious. Human life is trifarious. Human existence is in four stratum: physical, psychic, psycho-spiritual, and pure spiritual. But human expressions are in three stratum: physical, psychic, psycho-spiritual. And so the ideology, the guiding factor, has to deal all the problems humanity faces in the physical stratum, psychic stratum, and towards spiritual stratum. So it has to solve the problems of the physical level and social level. It has to solve problems that guide humanity in the psychic level, and also guide humanity towards its mark towards spirituality. So the ideology, having these three aspects, philosophically explained: the spiritual philosophy, the philosophy to deal the psychic part, and the philosophy to deal the physical and social part. So we have in Anand Marg, in the ideology of Anand Marg, a spiritual philosophy to deal the social aspect, social philosophy called Proud. Then in between the spiritual and the social, it is a mind which has to advance spiritually as well as to socially. The spiritual development, in a way, I call it vertical development, and our social development is a horizontal development, because the society, world around is outside us, and the spirituality, supreme desideratum of life, the supreme subjective Paramapusha, in the highest level of its conscious level, in the stratum of consciousness. So it is a vertical movement, vertical development in that sense. So in the subjective march towards Paramapurusha and an objective march to establish a society or social movement, then it is the mind which has to go up, it is the mind which has to enlarge out. But in between the mind, to give it connection, meaningfulness spiritually and socially, vertically and horizontally, we have so many problems in mind, so that this march, subjective march, can effectively, without any impediments, by social impediments, can be done. So what is that guiding philosophy? which comes in between spiritual and social, that was lacking. Nobody has thought of it. Even in Anand Mahar, Baba did not give that part of philosophy earlier. He gave the spiritual philosophy, first. Then he gave the social philosophy proud. And he went on elaborating, developing those two philosophies and various aspects connected with it. Then in the year 1982, he delivered a series of discourses which were published subsequently in the book named Liberation of Intellect, Neo-Humanism. So, which were further elaborated by subsequent discourses and published in the form of Neo-Humanism in a nutshell, part 1, 2, 3. I do not know how many people have gone through those books, but it is essential to get a comprehensive understanding of this philosophy of Neo-Humanism. Anyway, I gave a summary of that Neo-Humanism philosophy. You might have got it in the title Neo-Humanism, the Philosophy of Justice. But I had it subsequently, I heard the Philosophy of Justice and Universal Welfare. So, fortunately, by His grace, I was also there in Calcutta, in the Tilda, that hall where Baba used to deliver those discourses. And I also conducted a seminar in the year 82, end of the year, on Neo-Humanism. Anyway, what I wanted to say, he delivered that part of ideology, which is called Neo-Humanism, 1982, after elaborating much of spiritual and social. So, Neo-Humanism, to deal the psychic part of humanity. That's why I gave the title of the class, the humanist part of the ideology. Humanist part is very, very fundamental because everything is for human beings. We are human beings. Everything is for our development and prosperity and onward march. So human part is the most fundamental. And what is this human? What is humanity? What is humanism? There was no clarity. So all that were to be dealt by Baba to make us ourselves, we being the human beings, what we are. What is Paramapurusha? What is God? What is Brahma? Beyond comprehension for ordinary people. And that is later on. We will search. We will try to find it. We accept it, but we have to know it. What is society? We see it, but not of that expectation. But we, the human beings, nobody has to tell you are a human being. Nobody will tell you are a monkey. No, everybody will say you are a human being. So we are human beings and we want to know ourselves better as human beings. In that line, in that pursuit, we will go for spirituality. In that pursuit, we will proceed for human society. But we are first human beings. We must know ourselves. And there was no philosophy to explain you as a human being, we as a human being. So, Neo-Humanism deals at length the human aspect of humanity. And in that connection, makes spirituality meaningful. In that connection, makes society, human society relevant. So, both are to be formed, both are to be realized, both are yet to be established. One is towards spirituality and another towards society. But we are there. Whether society is established or not, whether spirituality we have attained or not, but we are here. So till then, how we have to handle ourselves with all our imperfection, limitation? What is the philosophical guidance? There was no philosophical guidance. So Baba, seeing that need, developed all those thoughts associated with it and gave it the name Neo-Humanism. The first point of my presentation is the propounder that I've said in little. Propounder of Neo-Humanism. The propounder of Ananda Marga, Sri Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, spiritually known as Sri Anandamurti, he propounded, besides the social philosophy of Proud, also propounded the humanist philosophy of Neo-Humanism. So what was the context? Any philosophy comes into existence, it has a background. It has not come all of a sudden from the blue or out of human evolution, and necessity came to solve the problem intellectually or socially. Some philosophy comes into being. So many philosophy came in the past, in the Indian tradition. atheist philosophy 6, theist philosophy 6, atheist philosophy 3, total 9 philosophies in India. But all those philosophy, their main concern was there is suffering in life. There is suffering in life. There is dukkha. There is pain, miseries, full of these things. And how to do away with all these suffering and pains and miseries? Where philosophy comes, explains, and here is the way. So whether it is theist philosophy or whether it is atheist philosophy, they all agree life at present is full of suffering. But in Anand Marg, is a revolution in every field. And that revolution is paradigmical. Whether he explains philosophy, whether he tells economics, whether he gives any field of pursuit, intellectual pursuit, he has changed the paradigm. So paradigmically changed, paradigm change. In the philosophy also there is a paradigm change. So he says not the suffering is the fundamental truth of life. Joy, infinite happiness, anandam, that is the fundamental in life. Life came out of this blissfulness, joy, and there is joy in it. But because we don't realize it, that is the suffering. So what is how to attain this blissfulness, which is a fundamental aspect of life? For some reason we are not able to realize. So he explained it philosophically and gave a path, the marg, and they called it Ananda Marg. So Ananda Marg philosophy fundamentally differs from all Indian philosophies hitherto given, which accept suffering is the fundamental in life. No, blissfulness is the fundamental in life. So that is the only thing. So Buddha, we all know, a great enlightened soul, very compassionate for humanity, did a lot of work for humanity. So he saw life is full of suffering, birth to death. Then he was a very sincere person to himself. He saw, no. I don't want such a life of suffering. What is the way out? Why is this suffering? He was disturbed. When a child was delivered, he had no happiness for it. He was unconscious in a way because he was lost in himself to find out a way how to deliver us or humanity from suffering. He spent so many years and finally he came with assertion. Yes, there is suffering. That is first truth. Why is the suffering? Second truth. The suffering can be done away with. Third truth. And lastly, there is a way to get out of this suffering. But in contrast, what Baba says, yes, blissfulness is the fundamental truth. There is, how it can be achieved and all the things. And finally, he gave the way. So my point is, before propounding any philosophy, there is a context. What is the context of delivering a humanist philosophy? That is, Baba was born 100 years ago, 1921, and he had the plan for his life much earlier when he was a boy of 7 years. But he had to wait to deliver the things for what he has come. That was the time of First World War. It ended, and world was heading towards a Second World War. It took place in the year, you know all the things. That Second World War was also over. There was a great change in the collective consciousness in humanity. The colonial rule was over. But exploiting machinery has to continue. India became liberated. So also so many so-called developing countries. So then India became a republic, 52. Then in the 1955, he delivered, he propounded Anand Marg and went ahead. So he had to wait for a situation that humanity, despite of development, where it is going, was not solved. The elements were working. They were all economic wars coming from Europe. So that economic movement to hold the entire global humanity, that is continuing. So if this continues, humanity is moving on the wrong path. If it continues, all the advances made by humanity will go in nothing. So we have to find out a way, have to assert and come forward, and that is how Anand Marg delivered his philosophy, presented his ideology. So he had to wait for that situation. In the turn, humanity at the critical mode. If its problem is not solved, it is going to perish. A global war and end of everything. If it has to be saved, then something has to be done. That is in Sanskrit called Yuga Sandhi. One era is over, a new era has to enter in. At that critical mode, something is to be done to save humanity, give it a direction. That is why Sri Anand Murthy entered and did what he had to do. What I want to say, the humanist part. So the situation had compelled the Lord to save humanity, and for which he had to deliver that ideology which is humanist. So that was the context. Now, when it comes to, what should I say? So when it comes to ideology, Anand Marg has two parts. With Parama Purusha, Supreme Guru, then an ideology enlighten ideology, intellect is a practical part. So ideology. We say there are so many ideologies. Baba categorized. No, there are only 4 types of ideologies in the world. Matter-centered, Marxism, communism, self-centered, capitalism, dogma-centered, all religions. 4th is a God-centered, which was not so neither that Marxism or capitalism in the sense real ideology, we are not going. But in the name of ideology, there are so many isms are there. Which is, so for neohumanism, it's also ism. So what is ism? So Baba explains.
Sorry, Dada. Excuse me. Sorry, Dada. Sorry, Dada. Your voice is breaking. Yeah. Maybe can you turn off your video? The voice will be better. Dada, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah. So, picture nahi aaya. Video will come. I can talk because continue. So, ism. So, ism is a sentiment. That's maybe a caste, maybe a nation, maybe capital, maybe a thought, maybe a race, maybe some noun, something, and sentimentally we are connected to it. So religion is sentimentally connected to some thought. So becomes ism. So ism as a sentiment and as some substance, some thought, something like that. So can any such thing, ism, can be a guiding factor for humanity, which want to evolve it further to the further heights. So then we find what these isms have done. Then Baba categorizes in New Humanism. We can categorize this sentiment in the form of geo-sentiment and social sentiment. Then so-called human sentiment. So broadly, humanity is guided by 3 types of isms. Call it their ideology or call it their motivating force. So isms are guiding. So geo sentiment expressed in the form of geo-patriotism, geo-socialism, geo-economic, geopolitics, all the part kind of holding to that geo as land to which we are sentimentally connected. And because of the sentimental connection, we are forming a group who are associated with that interest of the group. So many groups come into existence in human society because of these so many isms, and then becomes inter-group clashes. Whether the group ism is geo-origin, or the group is a socio-origin, or maybe in a very broad sense, human mass as a whole, a sentiment for that, humanism. But we find none of these group formation is in the broader interest of humanity. They are all divisive, playing one against other, and one trying to dominate the other group. And in the process of dominating, what happens? One tries to exploit it. Then it is that exploitation is also explained. Politico-economic exploitation, political exploitation, economic exploitation, psycho-economic exploitation, psycho-political exploitation. Then in that, Baba explained various types of exploitation. Now, these exploitations make the human life miserable, painful, suffering. You know, when Baba blesses after this discourse, that nobody should undergo suffering under the pressure of circumstances or defective social system or dogma. When he blesses, sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kashchit dukkam apnuyat. Let nobody should undergo suffering under the pressure of circumstances created by defective social system or dogma. So why suffering in this life? Physical life, social life? Because of exploitation. Why suffering in mental realm? There also because of the exploitation. And what is the factor responsible? The factor responsible is all so-called petty isms. So when Baba say, if at all ism is to be supported, what is ism? That ism which stands for the welfare of all, universal welfare, not only of human beings, plant world, animal world, even inanimate world, the environment, total. So that sentiment which stands for the welfare of all, which stands for the justice and welfare for all, which stands for justice and injustice to none, which cares for the care of all, and which comes to serve for all. With that, only ism can be supported and encouraged. And that is only universalism. Then universalism is a far thing in our life presently. We have to attain it, you know. And what is this human? I will tell you, humanist. We must know what is the human. Human is a stage in the evolution of life. Life has evolved, you all know that, and through animality, through inanimate, animate, and highest, when animality is completed, then begins the humanity. And when humanity reaches this, unfolds it to the maximum, then we enter into the divinity. So from animality to divinity, that is the range of humanity. From the first sprout of moralism to the establishment in universal humanhood, that is the scope and the range of humanity. So establishment in universal humanhood means establishment in the universalism. That is our sentimentally highest range, broadest range, but starting from where animality has ended and humanity has begun. So, if at all ism is supported, universalism. But to begin with, none of us in the whole world are universalist, born universal. We are all born in some environment, so for which we have a sentimental connection. I am an Indian, you are a Malaysian, you are a Filipino. So you identify yourself with your isms. That may be because of your land you are born in. We have naturally affinity. That is not unnatural. We live in a community. We have joined pain, joys together. So we have sentimental connectivity to that community. It's also natural. So nothing is unnatural, but can that so-called natural can be encouraged for all the time. So if these natural sentiments go against the universal welfare, come in the hindrance, comes as an obstacle for others' welfare, then we have to think over it. Then we say, no, it is a negative state. So in that way, if at all ism is to be supported, that is the universalism. But the point is, nobody is attained that rank. What to do till then? Yes, we need some way to expand the periphery of this sentiment. It may be geo-sentiment, it may be nationalism, casteism, racialism, Marxism, capitalism, all ism with a periphery. And in that periphery lies the human mass holding it. So then Baba got an idea how to lead these people who are sheltered in a pettyism, in a periphery of some ism, and I have to take it to the periphery of universalism, which embraces and encompasses the whole universe. So then he thought of, yes, there is a way. If this periphery of any ism, we infuse humanism and expand it, ultimately that periphery will broaden to that extent, whole creation can be taken into its fold. That is universalism. And that sentiment, with that idea, Baba developed the philosophy of neo-humanism. He explains in somewhere. What was that idea? Which gave me a way to lead this pettyism to universalism. That linking a sentiment, it is also sentiment. From a small sentiment to greatest sentiment, you have to lead. And that is to be done sentimentally. So we require one sentiment with which we can expand the periphery of all so-called petty sentiments and lead them to universalism. That is, he called it neo-humanism. So neo-humanism is sentiment which leads from the initial sentiment in which we are all encircled, bounded, and that helps us to elevate, to expand to the universalism. That is the neo-humanism. So neo-humanism is a sentiment. Why it is called neo? Baba says humanity has made a much gone ahead, intellectually made great advancement, though the sentiment aspirations are same as those of the ancient ones, but our emotions have become deep, intellect much developed, so we can think great things. So he thought, why should I give the humanism, which is a feeling of human beings for other human beings? That is what is humanism. The feelings of joy and suffering of others. If I find oneness with them, that is humanism. So if can I call the humanism of the ancient people and the humanism of present more evolved people and yet to evolve, can I give the same humanism? Then the addition which gives a further addition to the human element and humanism, so he had to coin out a new name. With the same definition, humanism, he cannot make clear what he wants, what that sentiment is. So that sentiment he gives at neo-humanism, not just humanism, but neo. Then he explained what is neo, not new sentiment, not new humanism, N-E-W, neo. Neo means latest. Humanism of the past, humanism of the present, and humanism of the future, because human beings are evolving, and evolve to the finest, ultimate, that is the establishment of the supreme cognitive principle, supreme cognition, supreme human beauty, supreme, human excellence, whatever call you. So that is highest level of humanism to be achieved. So in another way, human evolution is not complete. Human beings we are not yet complete. We are with so many imperfections, so many defects, but we want to intend and get out of this imperfection and become a complete. So neo-humanism is a humanism of complete man. So how to become a neo-humanist? How to become a complete man? That is subject of my next class. So till then, understanding humanism, neo-humanism, is a humanism of the past, which we know, humanism of the present, which are before us, Can we justify this humanism also? He analyzes what you call really humanism is not a genuine humanism. It is a social sentiment maximitis. So there will be so many defects. This present humanism effect from the same defect which so many social sentiments suffer, make us suffer. So humanism is nothing other than social sentiment. Only thing is very broadened, and he calls it social sentiment maximity. So what is humanism is also not real humanism in the true sense of the term. God of entire humanity is not felt. Have our own selfish interest, holding the selfish interest. We claim we are humanist and for humanitarian work. There is a knife behind it to stab. There is an intention to exploit the beneficiaries. So how it can be humanism? Baba calls it pseudo-humanism. So the humanism, what we say as humanism, language of neo-humanism, it is pseudo-humanism. And people should sentimental strategies to justify human beings. You know, we are human. Properly, even for other living beings in an animate world, as if they have nothing. They are all for us to enjoy. So no concern for their well-being. But Paramapurusha, the Lord, the cosmos who created, so it is his creation. Just like a father loves his all children, the Paramapurusha, Supreme Father, loves all his created things. So this humanism, which has no concern for animate world, inanimate world, and even among the human beings, they are all pseudo hypocrites. So how it can be supported? So that is not. We need a humanism of the complete man. So humanism of the future, when human beings evolve to the total, what will be their humanism? That also included in the scope of this neo-humanism. So neo-humanism defines for the past, present, and future. So what was the necessity to deliver this neo-humanism? Because he says, the human beings are treading a wrong path. Treading a wrong path. Defective thinking leading to defective action. And action we have seen, First World War cannot be justified. Second World War, total so much of bloodshed and destruction. So many innocent people also died. And it can lead to, there was a Cold War. Then people are trying with all big bombs and missiles in their hand, how to save ourselves from the Third World War. So nobody wants a Third World War, but that greed, that instinct to exploit, that is continuing. So nobody wants a total war, annihilation of everybody. Then they also will have no land and nothing to live on. But that greed, that exploitative tendency, which you see, is present still there. Do you think after Second World War, capitalism is over? Capitalism has taken a very clever shape and exploiting psycho-economically. And that capitalism has become more organized, more concentrated in the form of multinationals. No, formerly rich countries were fighting themselves nationally. The days are over, they become multinational. Why should we fight among ourselves? We are a developed world. Let us exploit the developing and undeveloped world. Why should we fight among ourselves? So we are united. The capitalists of the world, united. And holding all the global institutions, WHO and WTO, the United Nations, all the world organizations in their hand, in their fist, and they're ruling and they want to exploit developing and developed. They are developed, developing and undeveloped. Who gave them authority to undevelop? I am an Indian. I'm born in India. I have a cultural heritage. I am undeveloped. In their sight, I am an undeveloped man. You in Malaysia, Indonesia, you're all undeveloped or developing. Who gave that identity? They are giving us identity. So that is continuing. So humanity is still continuing a defective path. And that will lead to, has already led to defective actions we have seen globally, and it's continuing. So a change has to be brought. And that change, to bring that change, an ideology is required. And no so-called ism, even humanism, Even international humanism is not the solution. We have seen it. What we need is nothing less than universalism. And to make that universalism real, we need a sentiment that is neo-humanism. So it is all explained, justified, and intellectually justified, socially, and that is the need of the day. And in that neo-humanism is a panacea for our problems. So presentation was that humanity, all isms, no ism other than universalism or neo-humanism can be accepted as the ideology of life. The so-called prevailing ideology, in the name of ideology, Marxism. It is materialistic, dogma-centered, gone. Then prevailing is so-called capitalistic, materialistic philosophy and Atma Sukha Tattva, self-pleasure seeking ideology that is now ruling, and the days are also numbered because it is not human. So in the light of humanism, if you see Marxism, it is against humanity. If you see capitalism in the light of genuine humanism, it is anti-human. So, and all petty things, they are all group not even human. So what do we say? We in an ideology, a humanist ideology. That is why I said humanist part of the Anand Marg ideology. Anand Marg ideology is socialist part, proud. Anand Marg ideology is spiritualist part, and Anand Marg has the humanist part. And human is the focal point. It is everything for human beings. So in that connection, what is human value? When understanding humanism is defective, what they say human value is also defective. That is not really expressing the human value. And they are fighting for human right, human value without knowing what is really human. So more developed person, if it suits American interest or European interest, and then it is, and it's not suiting other country, we are going against human value. When they themselves are doing, nobody is to talk on that. So that cry for human value, cry for human right, that is all to suit the beneficial and advanced those who hold the power. So that's also pseudo slogans. Nobody is crying real for human right or real for humanism. Otherwise, this affairs today. So when we don't understand what is human, anything we going with the wrong understanding, defective understanding of human is bound to lead to great calamities. And that is the cause of all suffering, in the present suffering in humanity, in socially, economically, politically, psychologically. Why we suffer? Because the ideologies guiding human beings are all defective and giving defective thoughts in our mind, leading to defective action. To save humanity, a humanist ideology is required. Realizing this need, Baba delivered neo-humanism, philosophy of neo-humanism, year 1982. After giving firm foundation, spiritual and social philosophy, he delivered humanism. That's why the present today's class is the humanist part of the Anand Marg ideology. Everything is for human beings, even God. If it is not relevant to our elevation, what we have held that we bother for God? What we held the bother for Brahma? If it is not by becoming a part of our life, in elevating ourselves, because Brahma Tattva is relevant to elevate our life, blissful living. We are concerned for Brahma. We are concerned for thing. What the hell for go for collective living if it is not going to improve our living? Yes, that's why we want collective living. No problem can solve individually. We are social being, but in the name of social being, we cannot remain identify this ism, that ism, that ism, again creating intergroup clashes. So we require, as a social being, ideal society, free from all disparities, free from all, discrimination, and where everybody has right and flourish, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and make the earth a blissful heaven itself possible. You don't have to go to think of any heaven. Earth itself can be made heaven. It is we, human beings, having defective thoughts, made this a hell. Paramapurusha did not send us here to live in this hell. It is the most, beautiful earth, planet Earth, so most beautiful. Very few such planets may be in the universe. So this so beautiful treasure of humanity made like a poisonous hell. So we have to need such a society and to strike a balance, internal march, as I told, to proceed, to elevate, to expand, to attain the supreme beatitude of life, supreme excellence, supreme cognitive principle, that is a vertical march, we call a subjective approach. The Paramapurusha is your own self at the highest level. Paramapurusha is not somewhere imaginary. It is within you. When you elevate yourself to that supreme, you become one with him, you are the Paramapurusha. So when Paramapurusha come down under the spell of his Prakriti, you are in itself. So Jiva and Shiva, no difference. Drop of water and ocean of water, water is same. So only dimensions different. So when we want to elevate ourselves to that supreme stance, that is a vertical movement, and that is called subjective. That is supreme subjectivity from the supreme negativity. What is supreme negativity? Crude state, animality. What is the supreme subjectivity? Divinity state, divine state. So a human march of humanity from that fundamental negativity, from end of animality to the attainment divinity, supreme subjective. It is the subjective realm. That is why its approach is subjective, because the journey is in the internal realm. So that is subjective. And world outside, the universe outside, that is our objective. That comes into objective chamber of mind, and this comes in subjectivated chamber of mind. So this march is subjective, that march is objective. Then we have to carry on both. One step this one step. So we can't be divided when both legs are apart. You will be divided in yourself. So you have to move subjectively while keeping in harmony. That's objective word, making helpful to your subjective mind. This is called objective adjustment. People sometimes think objective adjustment means making compromise with objective world. No compromise. No surrendering your genuine interest. Objective adjustment means making the objective world congenial for your spiritual journey, for your inward journey. Objective world is society, social institution, helpful, congenial for your spiritual mark. Your spiritual mark, congenial, is the devotional path. The devotion is the inner asset, and world outside is our outer asset. We require outer asset, we require property, we require building, we require money, we require house and everything. That's all objective assets. But then what is your subjective asset? Inner asset, that is your devotion. So inner asset, devotion, outer asset, so many things, we need both. Because we have a body, we have to live in this world, we need wealth to take care of our physical body, to take care of needs. Then the needs are not the goal. Have a beautiful building, a beautiful house, beautiful Karodpati, lot of wealth in the bank. That is not the goal of life. They are the need. Your real goal is internal. So that outer asset should help to promote our inner asset. To have this imbalance, adjust with this internal march and outer journey, inner journey and outer advancement, we need to have a harmony. We need to have a happy blending. So outer world is material, inner world is spiritual, in between is our psychic connected subjectively to the spiritual, our psyche connected to the objective world, we have our mind. So materialism outside, spirituality inside. So we need a happy blending of materialism with spirituality, and that philosophy that guides you to strike with this blending, this adjustment, this harmony is neo-humanism. So without neo-humanism, you cannot make spiritual progress, genuine spiritual progress. Without neo-humanism, you cannot build a genuine human society. You will be lost totally. So we need to build a beautiful society, healthy society, which can help, which is congenial, economic system, cultural system, political system, social, all institutions are for man, for its further evolution. So that concept, that neo-humanistic vision of a society, and for that, how to carry it out, of course, comes the Proud Principles to implement neo-humanistic vision into social reality. That guiding philosophy is Proud. So Proud is to form the society, but the mindset which is required for spiritual journey and social formation, that mindset is neo-humanistic. And finally, the ideology. what gives you the your identity? Once I went to my very close one, long ago. After many years, I met him. He was a very elderly man. He was on the deathbed, but he was liking me very much. That time I was not in distress. When I met him, then though he was not well, he got up as if inspired. Then he asked me one question: what is your identity? Because he had seen me as my brother's son. He has seen me as a student. He has seen me as a child. But now he is seeing me in this form. So he asked me, what is your identity? I cannot say I am your son or this and that. I said my ideology is my identity. So it is the ideology which gives you identity. You are a casteist, you are nationalist, you are socialist, you are racist. East. What is your Ishta? Race is my Ishta. My nation is my Ishta. You are nationalist. My capital is my Ishta. Ishta means that is very dear. Capital is my Ishta. I am capitalist. So all this Ishta, Anandmar Parampurusha Ishta. So we are spiritualists. But those who make other things as their Ishta, they become that Ishta. Naturalist, casteist, Marxist, socialist, all Ishta. But what are we? Our identity? Our identity is we are neo-humanist. We will not say we are Proutist. Prout is my outer expression, social expression. I am a spiritualist. There are so many spiritualists. But even in spirituality, what gives your identity? There are Advaitavada, Dvaitavada, there is so many attained ones in the spirituality. So you are also a spiritual, you are in that same line. Maybe you are a Sufi, maybe you are this and that. No, we are a neo-humanist. So our identity is not our spirituality. Our identity is not our proud. Our identity is neo-humanist. The society we form is not a Proutist society. The society is formed neo-humanistic society. Prout is a guiding principle to form that. Give a leadership. Our leadership is that Sadvipra is a neo-humanist. If he is a neo-humanist, he cannot be a Proutist. He cannot be a Sadvipra. If he is not a neo-humanist, he cannot be a genuine spiritualist. So for everything, whether spirituality or sociality or wherever, you are what you are, your identity, we say I am a humanist. A humanist, you know, what type of humanist? So many people call themselves. You know, Marx was also a humanist. Really, he was a humanist. He could not tolerate the exploitation of human beings in England. And so many factory people, so-called proletariat people are exploited. He felt, just like Buddha felt the suffering at the core of his heart. The Marx, being a humanist, he felt the suffering. He went to made research for 30 years. What is this capital? How it should be demolished? So what is the ideological form to demolish it? So he studied and prepared the Das Capital. Yes, capital is growing into social and it will fall down. And that is the Das Capital, and that becomes the ideology of Marxism. Marx never gave an alternative philosophy. He only said what is capitalism, how it is growing, and finally how it will fall down. And in that state, what will happen? But he did not give an alternative, whatever it is. So Marx was a humanist, but he was a materialist. Darwin was a humanist, but he was a materialist. So all those Western people, the science developed based on matter. Matter is the concrete thing, and that is the material concept. And all the science developed on materialistic sciences. So philosophy developed materialistic philosophy, whether it is capitalism or Marxism, both are materialistic. So what is our identity? So there is Marx also humanist, but that is materialistic humanism. Then religious people also claim we are humanist. We Christians, we are humanitarian. We go to our message to whole world, message of love and love. And what do? What you have seen in history, you know. So what they have done, they went with the capitalist bloc hand in hand and helping them in the all design of their exploitation, making the so-called people as the satellite states. So they are hand in hand with the exploiter. Did the Christ desire it? Christ was a human. Did he desire that his followers should exploit and shake hands with the exploiters? I don't think. If Christ comes, he will be surprised. He will be shocked. What is this my followers are doing? So that is the role of religion. What I mean, in the name of materialistic humanism, then spiritualists say we are also humanist. है ना? I see everything in me, I am in everything. We are humanist. That is spiritual humanism. So in Anand Marg, before propounding neo-humanism, we also used to take class materialistic humanism, spiritual humanism, then in between is a radical humanism. M.N. Roy, he was a colleague of Lenin. He was a Marxist, staunch Marxist leader. But when he came in touch with Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar in Jamalpur on the tiger's grave, there was a discussion, and he was convinced, yes, intellectual freedom is required. Freedom of expression is required, which is not tolerated in so-called Marxism, in communism. So he deviated and stood for radical humanism, that he identified where intellectual freedom is that and mind can express. So matter accepted, but mind also has a role in that humanism. For humanism of Marxism, mind has no role. It is not independent entity. Spirituality is nothing to say about it. And in radical humanism, yes, intellect is there. Mind has to be scope for expression, but not spirituality. So materialistic humanism, radical humanism, where intellect has scope to express, and spirituality can be unfolded. So that humanism is, so in Anand Marg, formally we say Anand Marg stands for spiritual humanism. But finally, when he delivered neo-humanism, we know what is humanism. We are not calling your spiritualism. Spirituality is the base of our humanism, no doubt. Spirituality is the summum bonum of our humanism, no doubt. But what is the name of this humanism? Where spirituality is the base and supreme desideratum is the goal. This neo-humanism is called neo-humanism. So our identity, our humanism is neo-humanism, not materialistic humanism, not so-called spiritualist humanism. It is neo-humanism, and that is our identity of Anand Margi. So to be an Anand Margi in a capsule form, he must be a spiritualist because that is where we stand. He must be a proudist because he is in society, that is what his aspiration goal. But he must be also neo-humanist. So an Anand Margi is to be 3 in 1. He is a spiritualist, humanist, neo-humanist, and a proudist. If you only say, I am a proudist, and deny spirituality, deny neo-humanism, you are not Anand Margi. You may know better than Marxist, just fighting for justice and injustice and so on against. But when you say, I am only spiritualist, then you have no pain, consideration for humanity. That is not our humanism. So only concern for social aspect, only concern for spiritual aspect. No, we have a concern for all aspects of humanity, spiritual, human, and social. Because human is in trifarious, physical, psychic, spiritual. We have the problem in every stratum of our development expression. We need an ideology to guide all this stratum of human expression. So our ideology is a complete ideology. And to be an Anand Margi, he has to hold this ideology in totality, not in part. But then identity is, he is a neo-humanist. That is why I took the class, I designed the class, I presented the class. Neo-humanism, the humanist part of Anand Marg ideology. I see neo-humanism in the background of the ideology of Anand Marg, because the propounder of Anand Marg is also the propounder of neo-humanism and also the dharma guru of Anand Marg. So he has given a cult, he has given a philosophy, and he has given a total ideology, and he has developed an organization to give it shape to it. So everything he has done. And to be Anand Margi, as I repeat again, we must be a totality of our ideology, spiritualist, humanist, proudist, and with this in head and heart, we have to build ourselves and carry our mission of a human mission in the light of neo-humanism. So roughly, there are so many points in neo-humanism deals, that is called the sentimentality, then the rationality, then the so-called rational mentality. So all new words are designed behind to give expression to those concepts, which I have not dealt in totality. Maybe in next class, maybe little. So to form an ideal society for our subjective mark, to protect to carry on our devotional flow, as an ideology, as a to defend, fence our devotional growth, which is subject to realm. It requires a fence from the attacks of materialism, from the attacks of the materialism coming in the form of geo-sentiment, social sentiment, so many things. So this small plant we have planted in our heart, the devotion plant, seeded it, cultured it, developed it. So that is our inner asset. We have to protect it with all tender care. And that protecting the fence is neo-humanism. So neo-humanism is also a protective fence to the growth of devotional growth inside from the blows, attack coming from outside world. So it is a protective fence. In that way also, it is very much essential to carry on your devotion flow. And next class, there's this role becoming a neo-humanist. Such things can be discussed further. So roughly in a class, I have presented, there may be so many points left here and there. In definition, what is neo-humanism? Why neo-humanism? Somewhere I have mentioned here and there, but it can be defined way, yes, what it intends, what it will lead to, all the things. So with this change in the paradigm of humanism, I know, Baba has given a lead in every field of human activity, in agriculture, and science of health, in linguistics, in music, in philosophy, in psychology, in yoga, in tantra, in sociology, economics. In every field, he has given a lead. Where you are, then he takes us further, because we have to go further. That is his role. He has given a lead. So here he has given in the field of humanism, which we have so far not understood properly. Nobody gave a serious thought what is humanism. So because of which, in course of advancement, those who are privileged, those who would have power, they looted, they exploited. So humanity became downtrodden humanity, and humanism, downtrodden humanism. Nobody took care to take care of them, to give them the tender lift and bring them in the mainstream. So it was a defective humanism. So that downtrodden humanism, downtrodden humanity, Baba thought this is the right time now to give a reappraisal, deep thought to this humanism, and make a fresh reappraisal, so that everybody come in the main flow and everybody can move in unison toward the destined goal of humanity. That is, he said, neo-humanism. He had to give that neo-humanism philosophy, and he had to make it clear what is his role, and all the associated concepts are there, which can be elaborated further, like what is Sama Tattva, what are the, what should I say, who is a revolutionary, who is a evolutionary, who is a reactionary, who is a reformist. So when situation of exploitation comes, where do you stand? In Malaysia, people are exploited. You understand it. Where do you stand? You may be a reactionary, you may be evolutionary, you may be reformatory, your reaction may be reformatory, or your reaction may be revolutionary. Baba was a revolutionary. In every field we saw there is exploitation. He stood and fought it. And that is what he expressed from Anand Margis. In situation of exploitation, don't remain a goody boy, living in high tower and sorry, everything going bad. Oh, corona, people are exploited. People are kept in dark. So somebody great designer that I understand, but I say, sorry, I do nothing. So a neo-humanist cannot do it. So to become a neo, what should be, that is next class. But first try to understand what this neo-humanism is, because it is directly concerned with, not with God, not with the society to form. It is directly concerned what we are, understanding ourselves as human beings. Are we really human beings? Am I racist? Am I casteist? Am I nationalist? Am I really what am I? So to understand ourselves better, Baba has helped us by giving the philosophy of neo-humanism and explaining, so that we understand ourselves, we try to evolve meaningfully, intentionally, intelligently, so that make our life blissful and happy.
That is need baki. 10 minutes you have more.
So, यदि वो पूछेंगे तो
Yeah, you have 10 minutes more to speak.
Oh, so this much is there. Yeah. So finally, we in the subjective journey, I have explained what is subjective journey, and that is a goal. And in the objective world, we are also moving there. And movement should also have a goal. It is not reckless moving, not moving without direction. It is moving with direction. The direction is aimed at our goal. So keeping the goal, aiming at the goal, we have to move. And in the subjective journey, the goal is oneness with the Supreme Lord. Oneness with our Creator. We are a part of creation. We are in creation and we want to be one with Him. So that we call moksha, that you call mukti, call liberation, that you call fullness, that you call completeness. So in our inner journey to become a complete being, Purna Madaha, that was Purna, full in itself, Purna Idam, this also is a Purna, that this has come from that. So Purnat Purnam Udachyate, Purna has come from Purna, even then what remains is Purna. So we have come from that infinity, we are part of that infinity infiniteness is in us, but we don't realize it. So our journey to unfold ourselves, to realize our full potential of the completeness, and when you realize your completeness, then that is the goal of your life, or which we are destined as human beings. We are born, we have come on this earth to continue that human journey, to become a complete, free from all bondages. Then in remaining in the world, in society, we are part of the environment, we are part of human conglomeration, and we want to organize ourselves beautifully so that to form social beautiful setup and called human society, which presently is divided into so many factions and so many groups and fighting each other, as I explained already. But we don't want it. We are intelligent beings. We are more responsible beings. We don't want to fight like cats and dogs. We are human beings. So we are in a better position to understand and lead and guide. So that should be a new human society. Now there comes, we have two faculty. Faculty of sentiment and faculty of rationality. Faculty of sentiment and faculty of rationality. These are two leading us. There is also instinct. Animal life is guided by instinct. We are also instinct. So animality works instinctively, but we are more evolved. So we have developed sentiments. We are more evolved. We have developed rationality. So rationality makes us to think, and sentiment makes us to feel. So both are required. So if human beings are guided by only sentiment, it brings dynamism. But if not guided by rationality, that dynamism, that speed may collide with somewhere, and there will be great destruction, great harm, very risky. And guided by only rationality, only with knowledge, no emotion, no devotion, no sentiment, only knowledge. So that rationality without sentiment becomes speedless, no speed. So that is also not required. For movement you have to speed, and there is acceleration. The speed and acceleration come from sentiment. And speed and acceleration without a direction, without support of rationality and knowledge, become dangerous. So we need sentimentality, we need rationality. When sentiments guided by rationality, that is what is required in a human march. So not only just guidance by rationality without sentimentality, not just sentimentality without rationality. So geo-sentiment, socio-sentiment, ordinary human sentiment, the sentiments are guiding. If the sentiments are not guided by rationality, what has happened by geo-sentiment, imperialism, capitalism, fascism, all these isms coming from geo-sentiment and socio-sentiment, so many other clashes, intergroup clashes. So because rationality are not entered in the leading minds, they are guided by sentiments only. That massive national socialism, what has done? 6 million Jews were murdered en masse because racialism. We are Aryan, the superior. that superiority complex is still there. Anyway, so that creates all the superiority complex, inferiority complexes. So what I mean, sentiments without rationality, very dangerous. And rationality without sentiments, what should I say, it is motionless. So for progress, that cannot bring progress. So we require both in a way. So in neo-humanism is a sentiment and also there is rationality. Full scope is given. That's why liberation of intellect. Intellect which has to liberate humanity, intellect which has to guide us, if that is bounded, how we can make progress? That is why Rishis made a prayer. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Oh Lord, oh Supreme Father, please guide my intellect, Dhi, unto thy path, unto the path of benevolence. So a prayer to enlighten Buddhi, to inspire Buddhi, to move towards supreme beauty. So a prayer for guiding the Buddhi. Sano Buddhiya Shubhaya Shubhamastu. May he guide my intellect towards Shubha, towards the welfare. May he guide my intellect to the universal welfare. So in response to that prayer for universal, guiding the universal welfare, to guide the intellect to the supreme beauty, so that guidance required. So guidance, that means Buddhi is to be liberated. That Buddhi which has to guide, if it is bounded, how it can guide? How a slave man can guide humanity? He is a slave. Somebody dictating him. So he has to become free from slavery. Then he can express himself. So Buddhi which has to guide humanity, if it is bounded, so there is no scope for humanity progress, because we have made much progress because of our intellectual advancement. So when intellects were choked in Europe by church and so-called political structures, there was revolt, and that through the Renaissance movement, intellect were liberated from all dogma, and that led to the advancement of European people, and they spread all over the world, and youth with developed, they started exploiting. But there was a revolt. So there was expansion, there was prosperity, the development. So intellect which has to guide, if it is choked, bounded, who binds it? Narrow sentiment, dogmas. So liberation, that's why neo-humanism, Baba says, the title, Liberation of Intellect, Neo-Humanism. To liberate intellect from dogma, to liberate the heart, loving heart, from narrow petty sentiments. Your love is confined to particular group, periphery of that ism. No, it has for expand to all. So neo-humanism, to liberate your intellect, neo-humanism, to liberate your love from petty things, from petty circle, the universal, that is the neo-humanism. So neo-humanism is to liberate your intellect, which has to lead and guide you, and it has to liberate your heart from narrow bindings which confine your love to only a small group instead of distributing to the all over. So neo-humanism is, that's why liberation, you have to liberate your intellect. It is not by wishing your intellect to be liberated. You are a victim of so many dogmas coming through religion, coming through so many ways, so many philosophies. Your intellect is dogmatized, and you do not know. You think, I am free, I am thinking. No, your thinking is conditioned. You don't not see the wider world, wider scope. You speak like a frog in the well only. You are not seeing the ocean. Had you come from the ocean and told to the circle of frogs in the well, those frogs will not understand the frog coming from the ocean. They're saying this is only boundary. How can that be greater boundary? So you are telling lie. That is the situation. So if neo-humanist comes in the circle of people, they will, first of all, they will puzzle. Who is he telling all the wrong things? Impossible. So anyway, liberation. We have to liberate that intellect. We have to liberate our heart from periphery of petty isms, and that is possible only through neo-humanism. So neo-humanism is the panacea for everything, panacea for spiritual development, and that required for constructing society and make ourselves life joyful. Baba said, let humanity see the sweet taste of liberated intellect. We have not tasted the taste of liberated intellect. How sweet life can be if the intellect is liberated. So that has to be done through seminar to disseminating knowledge of neo-humanism, this and that. So today, neo-humanism, the humanist part of the ideology of Anand Mar. This is my first presentation. I never presented philosophy of neo-humanism in this way. Thanks to Chit Krishnanand, he gave me scope and asked me to give a class to my Margis in Malaysia. And thank you people also. Who demanded a class on neo-humanism. And I had to refresh myself, whatever I wrote, I studied for the sake of this class. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dadaji. Thank you.
Okay.
Namaskar, Dadaji.
Namaskar, if you
Namaskar.
can. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dada.
It was very
Thank you,
wonderful
Dada.
class, Dada. I can
Very
see
good.
your spirit and your energy. Wow.